Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and my name is Sian. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more. There are loads of helpful videos on this channel. I'm sure you'll find something that you like. I've got for you what I read in October, and there were 7 books this month. Largely helped because I actually got to go on holiday and totally chill out and relax and enjoy reading. So I always read more when I'm on holiday. It was also a holiday without children, which definitely helps as well. So without further ado, the first book I read this month is called A Dog Called Homeless. Now this was recommended by Louise from Digital Nomad Girl, and it's a children's book, I'm pretty sure. And it is about a girl called Callie whose mum died when she was younger. She's living with her dad, they're struggling for money a bit, they're kind of finding life a bit difficult basically. Callie believes that she sees her mum, not like a ghost, kind of like an apparition. So she sees kind of a vision of her mum, and then not long after this wolfhound starts kind of appearing in the same sort of place, and the mum seems to be kind of calling to the wolfhound. And it's just a really nice story. It's a story about friendship, it's a story about finding out who you are after loss, it's about how families survive after loss and grief and grieving. Callie makes friends with a young boy who has quite a few kind of disabilities, but you know, she sees past all of that, she doesn't even kind of notice that, so they become really good friends. So there's a really nice friendship running throughout. It is a children's book, so it is quite a kind of basic story, but it's really good fun, really nice, it flows really easily, and it was just a really nice easy read. You can tell it's a kids book because the words are absolutely massive. It probably took me an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to actually finish the whole book, so it really didn't take long at all. The second book I read this month is called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rinny Eddo-Lodge. And this book has been on my to be read pile for absolutely ages. I'm sure you saw it in my possibly summer to be read, and I don't know why it took me so long to actually getting round to reading it. Now this book started just as a blog post, but it was a blog post that kind of went viral and started gaining a lot more acclaim, and so a book was born from it. And it's a really, really interesting book. It looks into how Black history has been kind of eradicated from the British education system, and how there's that inextricable link between class and race and how people are treated, and the chances of being pulled over for being someone who's a person of colour as opposed to a white person. It is a really eye-opening book. It makes you really think about class and race relations in the UK right now and across the world. And you know that I love books like this. It's more of a factual book, so it's not like The Hate U Give, which I read last month before, which is obviously looks at the very same topics but from a different perspective. So this is very much a kind of factual book about facts, the figures, really delving into kind of why things are changing like this and why Black history isn't studied, all this kind of stuff. And it's a really, really interesting book. If you are kind of fascinated by the way that class and race relations work, kind of like I am, then it will be a really interesting book for you to read. The next book I read this month I haven't got with me because I read it on holiday and I left it behind. It is by Katie Ford and it's called A Secret Garden. It's not necessarily the kind of book I would normally read, but my children bought it for me for Mother's Day, so it has been on my to be read pile for quite a long time. It is a story about kind of a secret garden, but that doesn't really come until kind of right near the end. It follows the story of a lady called Lorna who is a gardener, and also Philly who is like a plants woman, so somebody who grows plants to kind of sell on. And Lorna has kind of escaped to the UK with her granddad, so they live together in this kind of ramshackle house that they're both very, very happy living in. Her granddad bakes, so he has like a stall at the local market, and it's basically the story of Lorna and Philly and their kind of like relationships and finally maybe meeting someone. There are a lot of engagements in this book, possibly the most engagements I've ever come across in a book. But it's a really nice story, and then they find this kind of secret garden right relatively late on in the book, and they decide to resurrect this garden, so it becomes a labour of love and in all senses, and it's just a really nice story. It was easy to read, the characters were likeable, it was predictable, but there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just need like a predictable book to kind of go with the flow with. And the next book I read this month I also don't have with me because, again, read it on holiday and left it with me. It is called A Girl with Two Lives by Angela Hart. Now, Angela Hart is an experienced foster carer. This is a true story, I believe, and it is the story of a girl who came into her care as an emergency, a girl who has a whole lot of issues, and it talks you through all those issues. It talks you through how the family are kind of dealing with those issues and how this girl seems to change from one personality to another. She's aggressive, then she's kind, then she's kind of thoughtful, and then really kind of malicious or vindictive. And it's a really difficult book to read because you're kind of struggling with these two characters and you're trying to work out, you know, what's going on in the background of this. So the girl is called Danielle and she has been excluded from a special school, and it's kind of a heartbreaking story really to find out what she's been through in her past that makes her behave the way she does now, and the fact that she's kind of mentally quite young, so she will talk in a very babyish way and then suddenly she'll swap and change and talk in quite a mature way. So there's a lot of issues within the book, and it's basically about Danielle's story and how we find out what's kind of not wrong, but what the problems are that are stopping Danielle from being able to kind of function normally. And it is a really sad story. It probably wasn't the best story to read on holiday, but it was a really interesting story, and the fact that it is a true story made it just all the more heartbreaking. The fifth book I read this month is Ready Player One. This has also been in my to be read pile for absolutely ages, and oh my goodness, this did not disappoint. I was really excited about reading this. I'm not entirely sure that I knew exactly what it was, but it's basically kind of like a futuristic world but set in the 80s, if that makes any sense. So it's a futuristic world but it's based on someone's kind of childhood, them growing up, which is all from the 80s. So it's all kind of like Ataris, like all the kind of gaming systems that were around then. I'm not a gamer, but I absolutely loved this book. It was insane. So there's basically three kind of main characters, and they live their lives in the real world, but the real world is kind of very much kind of destroyed. There's not a lot left of it. People live in trailer parks in kind of caravans piled high on top of each other, and you have to scramble down. It's kind of, you know, every man for themselves basically. There is also this other kind of world, which is this kind of augmented reality. You put kind of a 3D mask on, but it's not just that. You put your whole body into a suit and you can run like on a treadmill in front of you around other worlds. So you go into what's called this oasis. You can do your schooling there. You can also play games there. It's pretty insane. There's a guy called James Halliday who is kind of like this tech guru genius who made loads of games and then sort of invented the oasis. And when he dies, they discover that he's left a golden egg. Now the golden egg is not like a literal golden egg, it is hidden inside loads of different old computer games. And whoever finds it wins his entire fortune, which is a lot of money. It's huge. He is a multi-billionaire, and so people start trying to play this game to try and win it. You need to know everything you can about Halliday. You need to know about what he liked to eat, where he liked to go, what games he played. So what happens is that some people kind of team up, which is a bit unfair, but there's a whole organisation which is set up to find the egg. So they have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees all trying to find the egg, all doing the research. They've got people in the background doing research, and then you've got people who are separate, who are doing their own kind of journey into adventuring into this world to try and find the egg. And then you've got people called Gunters, who are like small groups of people who are going in, and it is just an insane world. And you go into this world just like, oh my goodness. and I just couldn't stop reading because I had to know what happened next. The suspense is fantastic, the characters are amazing, there's a brilliant twist with kind of the gender of one of the characters. I'm not going to give away too much. It was such a good book and I just absolutely loved it. This kind of like dystopian world. Again, as you know, I love any kind of dystopia, anything like that, any visions of the future that are kind of a bit ooh. Yeah, really loved this book. The sixth book, it's the wrong way round. The sixth book I read this month is called One Day in December by Josie Silver. It's about a girl called Laurie and she is on a bus on her way home and she spots this guy out of the bus window through like the steamed window, and she falls in love with him instantly, like on the spot, knows she wants to marry him, but he doesn't get on the bus, she doesn't get off the bus, they don't meet. And she then spends the whole of the next year trying to find busboy, and you know, she's adamant she's in love with this person, that they're gonna get married, but equally she's trying to kind of rein herself in because that's insane. And she hasn't found him. She spent a whole year like going to the bus stop, looking for him in bars, all this kind of stuff. And then her friend Sarah comes round with her new boyfriend Jack. And who is Jack? Obviously Jack is busboy. Who else would he be? And Sarah is like her best friend. They've lived together since uni, they're really close. They're like sisters. Laurie's sister has died when she was younger, so they have this really close bond. So obviously Laurie can't tell her that Jack is busboy. She can't kind of say, oh, by the way, he stole my man. So she has to kind of watch this relationship unfold, and also she has to have a friendly relationship with Jack, which is really awkward for her. So the story follows all these missed opportunities for Laurie and Jack. Obviously he is with Sarah, there's nothing that Laurie can do about that, and there's nothing she would want to do about that. But it's a very difficult situation for her. And so it's just kind of these missed opportunities and how tricky kind of love can be, trying to find that person, and when you think you found the person and they turn out not to be the person, all that stuff. I enjoyed this book. It was a nice light-hearted read. I could picture it being kind of a film at Christmas, a tearjerker. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. This was the Mumsnet, or this is the Mumsnet Book Club book for November. Okay, the seventh book I read this month is called The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter, and this is the Bookish Mamas Book Club for October. So I'll leave a link below to the Bookish Mamas Book Club. This book wasn't quite how I expected it to be. I really enjoyed it. It is about Samantha and Charlotte, who are young children, and their dad Rusty. And Rusty is kind of a lawyer who takes on people who have done something really bad and tries to get them off. So for example, he will take on a case of a rapist and claim, you know, that they didn't mean to do it and try and get them off. A bit kind of like Better Call Saul, where he'll stand up for like the underdogs and the people who maybe shouldn't be stood up for. I don't know. And he makes a lot of enemies because of this. And when they were very young, Charlotte and Samantha saw their mum murdered in front of them, and they were also very nearly killed. And it is straight in there with the kind of thrilling, tense, adrenaline rushing storyline, and you then kind of follow what's happening now. Both children have kind of followed in their father's footsteps to become lawyers in the future, and we then kind of join the story in the current day, and Charlie is struggling. She's working with her dad, but not like as in the same office, but she doesn't stand up for the same kind of people as him. But she's working very closely with him. Her marriage is kind of failing. She's really struggling with life. There's a lot of stuff she's holding on to from what happened to her as a child. And she's then embroiled in a high school shooting. And it's all a bit kind of insane, really. Obviously it takes her back to being a child and everything she saw to do with her mum and how upsetting that all was. And she then is obviously a witness in this huge case. So you've got the story of the huge case that's going on and who's going to stand up for who, and obviously her dad is going to be standing up for the girl, the kind of young teenage girl who has killed these people in the high school massacre, because who else would he stand up for? So you've got that case, but you've also got everything that's kind of being dragged out of the past as well, and the kind of relationship between Charlie and Samantha, and how they're kind of progressing as adults and how their relationship is really fractured. It is a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it. It's not what I was expecting it to be at all. I don't know why. I kind of thought it would be more like a thriller. I don't know. It is a thriller, but I thought it was going to be more... I don't know. I don't know what I expected it to be, but it wasn't what I expected it to be, but it was very good. I'm going to stop talking now because I think I've been filming this for absolutely ages. But I did read a lot of books. I'm hoping that I can keep up in November. Who knows? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to, please subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Alright, bye.